Okay, today we are going to cover another very important aspect of a technical report, which is figures and tables. Okay, technical reports technical reports must have figures and tables. Okay, like it's almost impossible to produce a good technical report without inserting tables and figures. Okay, so we must know what to do with them, how to use them. So tables and figures and drawings and photographs, combinedly they are called as diagrams. Okay, so what are diagrams? Anything which is graphical, non-text in your report is under the heading of diagram. As I mentioned earlier, it is a very important part of technical report. Okay, if your technical report only consists of text, that means you are making a mistake. If it doesn't have diagrams, that means you are making a mistake. And one thing which I showed you in the first lecture, that if you are just putting text and text and text and text, the report seems boring. Okay, it does not encourage the user to spend time on it. But when you mix it with diagrams, then it becomes or looks interesting. Okay, so people are more encouraged to read your report. Okay, this is what we want in the end. So another important advantage of diagrams is they can summarize a lot of information. Okay, so the thing which you can say in 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs, it can all be summarized in one figure. Okay, and looks better, like I said. There's a saying as well, right? A figure is, or a picture is worth how many words?
More than a million words.
More than a million? Okay, in my days it was 1,000. Now we have better pictures, right? More pixels, good cameras. So now million words, good. Or it can clarify a situation. You guys must have done some lab experiments, right? Okay, so I don't know, but if I have to explain the circuit or the parts of a circuit or the parts of an instrument, okay, and if I keep on saying, look at the right hand side, there is a red button which means this, look bottom and there is a stand which means this, instead of this, if I just put a figure with correct labels, everything is clarified. Nobody will be confused. What do you mean by right and left and bottom and top and so on? Okay, so it can summarize information, it can clarify information, or it can show complex details which you cannot show in the text. Okay, now you guys are more used to it. So when you have to send like important message, then you send a voice message, right? Because if you try to type it, it's not so good. Okay, so it's a form of diagrams of all types must be clearly referenced in the text. This is the most common mistake which happens with students as well as professionals. Okay, now what do we mean by referenced? Referenced means it must be mentioned in the text. If there are 100 diagrams including everything, figures and tables and drawings. So if there are 100 diagrams, then all of them must be mentioned in the text. Okay, this diagram or this table shows this figure shows this, even if it is one sentence, even if you are not giving any details, even if you are not discussing them, but you must at least mention them. Okay, in some cases you can mention a group of diagrams together. Table 1 and 2 and 3 are showing these details, so they can be mentioned in one statement together. Okay, so referencing simply means they must be mentioned. Okay, In some cases we mention them indirectly. In some cases we mention them directly, like I just gave the example. Table 1 shows this. In some cases we mention them indirectly, but we still put the diagram number there. We still put the reference there. Okay, so reference means the place where you are mentioning them, I can look from there, that place where the diagram is. I can go to the diagram directly. Okay, so reference means you are mentioning them in a manner that I can track it in the document. Got it? Many of us mention, see table below. There are 10 tables below. Which one should I look? Okay, so reference means, and we will discuss references. So reference means mentioning them in a manner where you can, the reader can track exactly which diagram or figure you are talking about. So above and below don't work. Above and below don't work. You have to give some more information. Where is this? Where is this diagram you are talking about? Figure or table, where is it? Okay. So I was saying you can mention them directly, like figure 1 shows this and figure 2 shows this, or you can mention them indirectly. For example, you say population of Bahrain is this much, and that number is given in a table. Okay, so you write population of Bahrain is 1 point something million, and in the brackets you write the table number. Okay, so I did not say the table number, but it's there. Okay, or Bahrain, the area of Bahrain is this much, and it is in brackets. Table 2, table 3, wherever the area is mentioned. Got it? So I am not using it in the sentence, but it is mentioned in a bracket. Got it? So this is indirect referencing. Okay, so you can do direct referencing or indirect referencing, but they must be referenced. Okay, many times, and this happens very commonly with the softwares. Once you get to know a software, the software gives you hundreds of results, and you are very happy. See, I can have 20 diagrams and 30 tables, so all of them so colorful. My report looks like Rambo, the good type of family. So you are very happy, and what do? You take all of them and put them in the figure, put them in the report. But many cases, 90% of the cases, the person who is putting them does not even know himself what is shown in them. Okay, I ran the simulation, or I ran the design, and this is all part of the software. Let me take all of it, and they keep on putting it. Okay, this is a very, very bad practice. Okay, it shows the reader that you are wasting his time or her time. It shows the reader that you don't know what you did. You put 20 figures and you are not saying anything about them. It clearly shows that you don't know. Okay, so even if the figures and tables are available, you use a software, you got some data from somewhere. Okay, they are available, but if you are not going to talk about them, don't use them. Okay, it gives a bad impression. Clear? Okay, and like I said, in many cases it is important to put them, but if I keep on discussing each and every one of them one by one in detail, my report will be a million words. We don't want to have million words. Okay, so you can mention them 2 or 3 together, mention them directly, indirectly. Don't discuss them, just tell the reader what is shown in the figure, and that's it. Clear? Okay. Checklist for diagrams. When you are putting a diagram, check if the diagram is giving the required information to the reader. Okay, so the important point here is some required information. If the diagram is giving some information which is not required, I already mentioned, don't put it. Okay, don't waste your time and their time. Is it easy to use? for me, easy to use means a diagram which I can move around easily in the report. I have to copy it, paste it, get it from one place to another place, and so on and so forth. So it's easy. Okay. So again, going back to the software, some softwares give you the results in formats which can be easily pasted in the report, no problem. You can add it, you can do some graphics yourself, change the colors and font and so on, like Excel, MS Excel, very easy. Take any table from it, you can do the formatting yourself and the colors and the, copying and pasting, so everything is very easy. But if you use statistics software, okay, somebody said, you took statistics, right? You guys said we took statistics. So some of the statistics softwares are not so good. Okay, like if you print the result, you print it directly on a paper. Okay, or you print it as PDF. Okay, so not so good. So easy to use for me. If I am the person who is typing the report, easy to use for me means that I can move it and format it easily. Easy to use for the reader as well. So when the reader sees the diagram, he can easily detect what information you are providing. He can easily read it, he can easily distinguish between colors and everything. No. Okay, so easy to use for the person who is preparing the report and easy to use for the person who will read the report. Okay, does it look attractive? Okay, you know what it means. All of you have more fashion sense than me. Okay, so you know what it means. Okay, use the right colors, people are attracted to you, see it, and so on and so forth. Okay, and there is a science behind it. I don't know that if you use this color, then it is less, more appealing to the eyes. If you use this color, this combination, and this symbol, and so on. Anyways, I want to use all colors now. Okay, so this is you can see a sort of a diagram. Okay, and this is a graph. Okay, so it's part of the diagram. Okay, so it is showing the movement of freight in Bahrain in different years. Okay, so the movement of freight in 1998, and the numbers are given in dollars. Okay, and this is for 2020. Okay, so sorry, these are the values, and this is the weight in ton. Okay, so the movement of freight, this is in ton. Okay, and this is in terms of money. Okay, and you can see the portions here, how this happened. Okay, so it's very easy. Even if I don't explain everything, you can see what is this, the freight, what is this, how much freight in terms of weight, what is this, how much freight in terms of money, how much when was it, 1998, when was it, 2020. Okay, so it's like a good example. It covers the things which I was talking about. It's clear, very easy to read, and so on and so forth. Okay, and there's not too much information, so not too crowded. Okay, 4 bars, and you can see what each bar means. If you look at this diagram, you look at it and your heart goes up and down with the bars. Okay, so they are in different lines and they are crossing each other. Okay, and and have a look at it, and there is a problem actually. Okay, can someone identify the problem with this figure? There is a problem here.
It's not attractive to use one color only.
It's not attractive. Okay. Okay. Anything else? I'm talking about the data which they have presented.
It's not specific.
It's
not specific about anything.
It's not what? Specific?
Specific about anything.
It's not specific about anything. Okay. 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 Anything else? So we agree that it's not better than this one. This one is better than this one. Okay. Any other problem? Numbers, yeah.
Like the row? Column or row? The
This
numbers,
one, this
yeah.
one. Okay,
It's
okay.
not specific.
It's not specific because the numbers are not given, but this is income, huh? They did not write it, but this axis is for income. Okay, there is some mistake related to income. Now look at it. Look at the lines and look at the axis. Can somebody tell me the mistake here?
How's that line or the low? How is that also?
Uh-huh.
It's like this. Medium's like this.
Different shapes. Okay, it's from a data which we cannot control how the line goes. But my actually what I want to show you is, you see with each line they are showing that this line is for this much income. Okay, then what's the point of having an axis? Each line is for a different income level, and axis is also for income. How can I have income going from 0 to whatever, and then each line within that is a small part? We don't do it like this. You come here, come here. Look at one bar. Okay, so each bar is showing you the amount of freight, right? The amount of freight. Okay, freight meaning things, the cargo and so on. Okay, so each is showing what? The amount. Okay, so each bar is for a specific year or for a specific value. Okay, and within that then you have three divisions, right? This one for rail, how much we got from rail, how much we got from truck, and how much we got from air. Okay, does these three divisions have anything to do with the x-axis or the y-axis? No. Alright, so when you make divisions like this or divisions like this, they should not coincide with the axis. The axis is already showing the income. Why you are putting different line for each income there? So it's confusing. Okay, so this is, but the points which you identified are also valid. It does not look attractive, it is not specific. And what did you say?
The income is not specific there.
Yeah, the numbers are not given and so on and so forth. Okay, so all these things are valid. Okay, I give you an additional point. Okay, but we all agree which diagram is better in reading? The first one. Okay, positioning of the diagram is very important because you may be discussing something from the diagram, so we don't want to interrupt the reader, okay, to search for the related diagram. You are discussing something which is given in a table or a figure or a photograph, okay, but that photograph or figure comes in the next chapter. Okay, so you say there are three parts of X instrument, okay, and the figure of that instrument is after 10 pages. I want to see the three parts, where are they? So I have to go through 10 pages, look in the figure about the parts, and then come back and start reading again. It's a problem, right? Okay, so positioning is very important. So when you are discussing something from the diagram, the reader does not have to search. Obviously he will look for it, but it should be very close so his reading is not interrupted. Okay, as close as possible. So they are unlikely to stop reading, take a look at the diagram and come back and start reading again. This doesn't happen. Usually what happens, you look at the text and you just want to confirm, so you just go up and down maybe in 1 second and then come back to the text. That's it. If it takes more than that to search, you made a mistake. It's not good placement. Okay, so the placement should be that he doesn't have to actually stop reading for a longer time to search for where is the diagram. Okay, it will interrupt him, it will break the focus. Okay, so and they will not do it, so your diagrams are then useless. Okay, most of the readers, they will not do it. Okay, when we submit, research papers in journals. Some of them, what do they say? They say put all the figures and tables at the end for editing purpose. It becomes easier for editing for them. Okay, but if a paper comes to me for review and it is like this, then you know what do? I read the whole text and I assume whatever he wrote is correct. Okay, unless he made a mistake in writing, then I go and check. So all the figures and tables are useless for me. I don't see them. Okay, because I am reading the first page and the table is in the end. How many times I go up and down? Okay, so place them closer so that you don't interrupt the reading. Okay, and this is what I do, this is what they are saying. Okay, I will keep the information in my mind. When the table appears, I will have a look. If I still remember it, I will see, otherwise I will just move on. Okay, if you want readers to pay attention to diagrams, position them in the right place where they are needed. Okay, so that the reader, when he looks at your text, he feels the need to go to the diagram, the table or the figure. Okay, so you say Bahrain is the smallest country in GCC, for example. I am not sure if it is. I think. Okay, it is. Okay. So you say Bahrain is the smallest country in GCC, shown in figure 1. Somebody who has not seen GCC countries, who doesn't know about Bahrain, now he want to see the figure, right? So the figure should come there. So you are directing the person to go and look in the figure. Okay, so he sees the need. You are talking in a sense that you are forcing him. Okay, go and look at my figure, and the figure is there. The figure is there. Okay, this is the whole point. So the diagram must be positioned close to the text which is referring to it, or if it is supplementary information only, then it can be in the appendix. Okay, so the diagrams and figures and everything, it can be in the main report or in the appendix. Appendix, we cannot control it. If something is in the appendix, then it is where in the figure? Oh, sorry, in the report? Last. We cannot control it. We cannot say, okay, I will take one figure from the appendix and put it where I have discussed. No, it's not an option. Okay. So, but if the figure is in the main report, then wherever you are mentioning it, referencing it, make it closer to it. And the rule is mention should come first and then the diagram. The reference should come first and then the diagram. At least the first reference. Maybe you will reference to a diagram multiple times. Figure 1 is showing multiple things, so you will mention about it 10 times. So when the first time you mentioned it, figure 1 should come after it. This is more preferable. But if it comes before, acceptable, but it should be close. Figure 1 is page 10, then the mention should also be page 10 or 11. Okay, before or after, but close. Okay, now where do we use tables and where do we use figures? Tables are used for quantitative comparisons. Quantitative means what? There are two words. One is quantitative, the other one is qualitative. What does it mean?
Quantitative for numbers.
Quantitative for numbers, very good. And qualitative is? Qualitative means what?
Some qualities or traits.
Traits, qualities, okay, very good. Okay, so you have got the idea, and I cannot find the marker. So if you are comparing between numbers, exactly numbers, yeah, then tables are more preferred. If you are comparing between trends, patterns, okay, for example, everybody know sine and cosine, right? So their curves are different. So I am not interested in finding the value of sine 20 and sine 30 and cosine 20 and cosine 30. I just want to see the shape. Okay, so I will use a figure. But if somebody says do a comparison between sine at different values of angle, then I will use a table, because the comparison is between values. Okay, clear or not? So for quantitative we use tables. Okay, Yeah, another reason we may use a table when the difference is so small that it will not show prominently in a figure. So every figure has a scale, right? When you are drawing a figure, you have to use a scale. Okay. Now let's say you are trying to compare between population of last year and this year. It's still in millions, right? Huh? Last year millions, this year millions. Okay. So you want to show the comparison. So yeah, there is one thing, you can change the scale of the figure as well, but if you want to show the exact number and still show the difference, you want to show the exact number and show the difference between the 2 years, then it is preferable that you make it a table. If you plot it in a figure, the difference will be very, very tiny.
You can move the scale, make the difference small, make the difference
Yeah, you can play
dimension
around.
like this.
You can play around. People do that. Okay, I'm just trying to explain the concept. Okay. In some cases, even after moving the scale, it's not so prominent. Okay. So tables are used when you want to compare between values instead of the trend or the shape, and tables are also helpful when you want to show the difference and the difference is not so significant. Okay, you are afraid that if you put in a figure, it may get lost. Okay, or when the relationship between the dependent and the independent variables are unknown. Yeah, very good point. Whenever you take data, engineering data, okay, even if it is in a lab, there are a lot of things which are affecting your data and which you did not consider. For example, the room temperature. It is affecting your sample, but we did not consider it. Okay, maybe the sample was placed in a spot where it was under direct sunlight. Okay, you did not consider it. Maybe when you are making the sample, your weighing scale was not working properly. It had a small error. You did not consider it. Okay, so there are many things which affect your data. Okay, so when you plot the data, when you plot this data, so you take the values, you plot the data. There is an x and there is an y, right? Okay. Now, usually what happens? I know that x affects y in a linear fashion. So the graph should look like a straight line. I know that. Okay. For example, traffic. My specialization is traffic. I will give you a very straight example. Everybody would know that. Number of vehicles on the road is high. Speed is low. Very simple, right? More vehicles, low speed. Very simple. Our assumption is it is a linear relationship. Okay, so it's a straight line. Somebody comes with number of vehicles and speed data, gives it to me. I will plot it and make a straight line. Okay, but the data does not look a straight line. If you try to join all the points, it will not look like a straight line, because there are many things which are affecting my data. Again, I did not consider. Okay, so the data actually looks like this. Okay. See, it is supposed to look like this. The points are supposed to look like this. But what it actually looks like? These are the actual points. Okay. Now, if I try to join these points, will I get any shape? No. They are very random. Okay. But because I know the relationship, I will make it a straight line. I force it to be a straight line. So the minor difference, I will ignore it. like this. My straight line has some minor differences with the actual points. I ignore it. Okay? We call it the best fit line. This is a best fit line. Okay? So you can plot the points, join them exactly one by one, or you can make a best fit line. Okay? But to make a best fit line, I should know what. If I try to join all the points one by one, the shape I will get will be messy. I don't know what type of relationship is this. Okay? So in order to make a best fit line, what should I know?
Some details about the graph. For
What type
example,
of detail?
The arrows. Or-
The errors?
Yeah.
Okay, but we cannot know the errors. There are always some unknown errors. So what should I know? The other thing. I cannot know the errors, but I know how
correct is it?
the line looks like. If the data is correct, how it should look like. I don't know the errors, but I know the ideal, right?
Yes.
I don't know the value of errors, but I know without error how will it look like. Okay, so I'll make it like this. I know speed and number of vehicles on the road looks like a straight line, so I make a straight line. And if my straight line has some minor difference from the actual data, ignore it. Okay, clear? Clear or not? Now, let's say you are working in my office and I give you this data, and I did not tell you that it is speed and number of vehicles. Or even if I told you, you guys are from electrical, you guys haven't taken traffic engineering course, you don't know what is the relationship. You don't know. Okay? So can you make a best fit line? Because you don't know how the best fit line looks like. You don't know. Okay? So the best thing to do is, instead of using a figure, you use a table. Okay? So tables are used when you want to compare in terms of numbers. Tables are very helpful when you want to show the differences which are very small, minor differences. Tables are useful when you don't know the relationship between the variables. Okay? Now you can see here they are using the word dependent and independent variable. Okay? Dependent means what? I am depending upon something, right? Independent means what? I am free. Everybody is dependent here. Depend upon something. Okay? But variables are considered dependent and independent. Okay? Independent is that variable for which you are changing the value yourself, and dependent is that variable for which the value changes because of the other variable. Okay? So independent is the input and dependent is the output. Okay? For example, the temperature of the AC, it changes somehow. We don't know. It's a miracle. Okay? Nobody knows. It changes automatically. Okay? Very hot, very cold. Nobody knows how it works. So, if somehow I can get the remote of this AC, the control of this AC, okay, so I change the temperature myself. So, change in temperature is, I am changing it myself. It's independent. It's input, right? I am changing it. So I am assuming that anyway. Okay, I will make it 20, 22.
But you were talking about the temperature.
Yes.
So the temperature will be dependent on me to change it.
No, yeah. The experimenter is out of the picture. Okay? I am not observing the person who is experimenting. I am observing on what he is experimenting. Okay? So he is experimenting on temperature, and let's say what else? Give me something else. Humidity. Okay, fine. Okay? So temperature, I change myself. temperature, I am changing myself. When I am changing the temperature, I don't consider anything. I just take a random value. So this becomes independent. Okay, got it? And when I change the temperature, then I observe humidity. Then it becomes dependent. Now you got it? Independent is the one you are controlling. The experimenter is controlling. The person who is doing the experiment is controlling it. Okay, and the dependent is what he is assuming will change because of this. Okay, what he will observe. Okay, so independent is what he is changing, dependent is what he is observing. Independent is the input, dependent is the output. Okay, got it? So when you don't know how input and output are affecting each other, you cannot make a best fit line, and then you should use a table. Okay, in some cases we don't know what changes the other. Which one is dependent, which one is independent, I don't know. In some cases it happens. Okay, for example, fuel consumption and income. Okay, or no, fuel consumption and environmental emissions. Okay, so we don't know which one is affecting the other. Okay, so which one is input, which one is output. I have both data. Okay, so but I'm not sure which one affects the other. Okay, so I will make a table instead of a figure. Okay, yeah, so tables, if they are presented effectively, they can provide a lot of information to the reader. Tables can be used as like a 3D graph, okay, or 3D or even 4D graph as well. Okay, if they are presented properly. Yeah, usually figures are considered more easier to read as compared to tables. Okay, figures are more appealing in general. Figures are more appealing and they are more preferred instead of the tables. Now in management sciences, they present their tables in the form of figures as well. Take any management book. You guys will take construction management later on. Okay, you guys take any management course?
Engineering, economics.
Okay, maybe. I don't think so. It's very boring. But in management sciences and these other sciences which are related to what do you call social sciences, they even present they come up with a form that even the tables are presented as a figure. Okay, so they put grid lines instead of rows and columns. Okay, so again, because figures are usually more appealing and they are considered more attractive for the reader. Okay, and one thing which you already mentioned, that figures often provide a qualitative comparison. So comparison not in terms of numbers, but comparison in terms of shapes and form and other things. Okay, so you can see here the population of different governorates in Bahrain. Okay, for 2 years. Okay, for 2007 and 10. So we had one. This one is not here now. It used to be, there used to be a central governorate, I think. Yeah, now we have something else. So it has changed now.
They cancelled it and they kept it with Bahrain. So like they merged them.
Yeah, but there's a capital governorate as well, right?
Yes, all.
So they introduced one new one and then they broke the boundary of the old one and so on. But
They
anyways.
didn't introduce. They just merged it with Bahrain.
Okay.
Just merging.
Okay, anyhow, so you can see here, this is speed and the volume capacity ratio. Okay, whatever it is. Here you can see I am not interested in the values. There are no values. Okay, but even without the values, I know how this is affecting this one. It is affecting in the form of a curve. Okay, and the curve is very simple. It goes like this and then it goes down. Okay, so the trend is very easy to see. Okay, what happens? It goes like this and like this. Okay, very clear, very easy. Okay, forget about what we are showing, but the point is, in this figure the trend is very clear. Even if I don't see the numbers, I can see the trend very clearly. Okay, but when you come to this, the trend is not so clear. Each governorate may have a different growth rate. Some of them may be increasing, some of them may be decreasing. Okay, so and some of them may have more growth than the others. Okay, so instead of drawing them, I made them into a table. Okay, so here I was sure how the data will look like, so I plotted it. Here I was not sure, so I put it in a table. And even if I try to plot it, even if I know, like I said, there are too much variation here, from each year to another year, from each governorate to another governorate. Okay, so it will mess up the graph. Okay, so instead of putting in a graph, I put it in a table. Okay, each table and figure must have a number and a caption. Okay, so number is figure 1, table 1, figure 2, table 2, something like this. Okay, and caption is the title of the figure or the caption. Oh, sorry, title of the figure or the table. Okay, now the title should be self-explanatory. The caption should be self-explanatory. Okay, so even if you did not discuss the figure or the table in detail, if I look at the title, I know what the figure or the table is about. Got it? Okay, so but there must be a number and there must be a caption or a title. Both things are essential. Okay, both of them are required. Okay, the number will help the reader to search for it. When you say figure 6, so now he can look for figure 6. Okay, and it's easier to mention than mentioning the entire title. If you say go to the table which is showing the population of Bahrain, instead of this you say go to table 1. Easier, right? Okay, so that's why caption is for explanation of what you are showing in the diagram, and number is for tracking. Where is it? Yeah, table captions and numbers go above the table usually, and figure captions and numbers go below the table. Okay, above the table, and if I want to put a number and caption for this one, it will be below the figure. Okay, now figure and photograph and drawing, same rule applies. Okay, so there is table and there is other things, other graphical objects. Okay, it's very small but showing the same thing. Okay, above the table and below the figure. Okay, for better referencing, you can use the chapter number with the number of the table or the figure. Okay, so this is saying 2.1. The first number is the number of the chapter. Okay, and the second number is the number of the table in that chapter. Okay, so 2.1 means what? This table is in chapter number 2 and it is the first table of that chapter. Maybe there are already 5 tables in chapter number 1, but when you come to chapter 2 and you are using this style, then you have to start from 1 again. Okay, you can use continuous style or you can use this one. Both are acceptable. This one is considered more is considered easier for referencing because the number shows you the chapter number as well. Okay, so it's easier to look for me. So when I say table 5 or table 6, I don't have to see in which chapter it is. Okay, table 5 or 6, then I have to look, maybe it's chapter 1 or 2 or 3, I don't know. But when you say 3.1, I know it is in chapter 3. Okay, so it makes life easier for me. And same thing for figures. Okay, so when you use this is what now? Which figure? Chapter 1, the first figure. Okay, or you can use continuous numbering. Okay, use numbering with the chapter numbers or continuous, both are allowed. Okay, both series should be separate. Okay, the numbering for tables and figures should be treated separately. Okay, so you have one table and then after that you have a figure. So the first table will be table 1 and the first figure will be figure 1. The second figure, even if it is coming after the fourth table, it will be figure 2. Okay, so the numbering of tables and figures should not be mixed, they are separate. Okay, you will count each one of them separately. Okay, according to the style. If you are using this style, then again in each chapter you will restart the numbering for tables and figures separately. Okay, so table 2.1 and then we will have figure 2.1 as well. Got it? Clear? Okay. Yeah, if you make the use of the space where you are putting the table, okay, then it can make it easier for the reader. Okay, usually tables which are coming in the middle of the text, they don't look so good. Tables which come at the start or the end, they provide better reading. Okay, so this is what they mean by using the space. Okay, where you are putting the table, like alignment and these things. Okay, we already discussed that it should be near to the text where you are mentioning it. Okay, but where? Okay, and some tables can be made horizontally, some tables can be made vertically. Okay, so it is talking about these things. Okay, so how do you and the space within the table as well. So the table should not look too crowded. The table should not look too crowded, too much information. Okay, so again it becomes hard for the reader. Okay, so how we can make sure that the information within the table is not too crowded. Okay, so we can do these things. First of all, the units and the powers, you can put them in the heading. Okay, I think, yeah. So you see each one of these numbers is in $1 million. If I try to put million here, every number will be 7-8 digits long. Okay, so too much crowded, again too crowded. Okay, so in order to avoid this, I put the units on the top. Okay, and units as well as the power. The power is million. Million is 10 to the power 6. Okay, so put this information at the top, so the numbers or whatever the information is summarized. Okay, group together similar items. If items are similar, group them together. Okay, for example, you see in this table the airs are grouped together. Okay, the areas are grouped together. Okay, the information about a specific area, a specific row. Okay, so try to group them appropriately in rows and columns, so it will also and in some cases you may use longer intervals. Okay, group them together in longer intervals so that you have less information. So instead of having a number for every month, I can have a number for every quarter. Quarter of a year is how many months? 3 months. So instead of providing the information for every month, provide it for every 3 months. Even if 3 months is too much, provide it for every 6 months or 1 year. Okay, so group the information together. The point is your table should not be too long or too crowded. So whatever you can do to avoid that. Okay, how much detail the reader needs. Okay, do they need the exact figure so you can round them off? Do they need all the data, or some can be omitted or put in the appendix? Okay, you know about significant figures, right? Significant figures. What are significant figures? Decimal places. So they are basically talking about these. How much information you need. How many places should I go for? And my PhD supervisor always, whenever I used to send him a paper, he always used to mention this point: you are mentioning too many decimal places. Okay, and my numbers were like this. Let me give you one example: 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 9, 0, 1, 3, 4, 5. This number is in how many? Very 124,589, huh? More than 100,000. If a number is so big, does it matter the decimal places? 0.0? It isn't. Okay? So depending upon the number, you will decide how much detail you want to provide, how much exact you want to be. Okay? We use also numbers which are percentages. Now percentage is from 0 to 100. In that case, you want to put 1 or 2 decimal places, good. 10.1, 3.56. This is good for percentages. But when it is like this, you are giving something in hundreds of thousands, decimals are not important. Okay, so how much information you want to provide, okay, and how many things you want to provide. Maybe some things can be put in the appendix. Let me give you one example. We perform certain tests. Okay, when we get the data, we perform certain tests on it. Okay, and with the test we get the results. The results are A value, B value, C value, 10 values. Okay, the reader is interested in whether the test was successful or unsuccessful. The test was successful or unsuccessful. When we build the bridge, for example, so they go and check the strength of the column, the strength of the beam, and so on. Okay, so when I will take a sample, I will check it in the lab. I will have details of my experiment. Which machine did I use? What was the value? What was the error? How many samples? I will record all these things, right? But my client or boss wants to know whether I achieved the required value or not, right? This is the only thing he is concerned about. He gave me a design, and my column or beam meets the design or not, right? He is not concerned about all the numbers. So I can show in the table test number 1 successful, test number 2 successful. If he wants to see the values, I can put it in the appendix. Okay, so instead of having a table which is very long, 20 values for each sample, put these 20 values in the appendix, and the table just show how many times the test was successful. Got it? Clear or not? So tips to avoid crowding of information in the tables. Okay, how to make effective use of the space you are giving to the tables. Okay, this is, I already mentioned, you have to refer to the figure and the table. Okay, and I already mentioned this as well. Whenever you mention the figure or the table for the first time, it should ideally appear on the same page or the next page. When you mention the figure or the table for the first time, it should appear on that page or the next page. Okay, so this is the text which is showing the data regarding this is shown in table 1, and after that table 1 should appear. Okay, in some cases tables or figures are very long. Okay, so instead of putting them like this, we put them like this. Okay, if the table is very long, our pages are A4 or letter size, they are what? Rectangle, right? So this dimension is short, this dimension is long. Okay, so if the table or figure is too long, then we rotate it. We put them vertically. Okay, if you are going to put them vertically, then it should be aligned from left to right. It should be aligned from left to right. So I will read it like this. I will rotate my okay, so this is the normal. Okay, this is how I read normally. Okay, and when you put it horizontally, then I should be able to read it like this from this side. Okay, like this. So when I am looking from this side, it will go top to bottom. Got it or not? Okay. So the figure is too long. Okay. So see, the text is going from here to here, left to right. Okay. If you do it 180 degrees, then it will go from right to left. Okay. So if I put it like this, then you will be reading it from this side. You will be reading it from this side. So whenever you have to rotate it in a manner that table goes from left to right. The figure goes from left to right. The text goes from left to right. Okay. And what do we call this orientation? Vertical. I called it vertical, but what do we call it? There are two types of orientation for the pages, right? The normal one is called something, and this
landscape.
Landscape and portrait. Landscape and portrait. This one is what?
Portrait.
Portrait. Okay. The normal one is landscape. Okay. The tables and the figures should be separated from the paragraphs, the normal text which you are writing, by at least 2 lines. So you put you finish your text, then you leave 2 lines and then put the table or the figure. The reason is so the caption is not mixed with the text. Okay, see here, there is no gap. Okay, I'm using a different color, so you know it's a caption. Okay, but if I'm not using a different color, maybe somebody will mix up that it's a paragraph as well. Okay, so to avoid this, we put two lines, at least 2 lines of gap between the text and the figure, and there are different ways to do it. We will discuss it next week, inshallah. Okay, a capital letter must be used at the start of the mentioning of the figure or the table in the text. Okay, so you can mention it like table 2. So the first letter is capital. The first letter is capital. Okay. In some cases we use figure in a small form as well. So this is a short form for figure. Whenever this appears, it means a figure. So instead of writing figure 5, you will write FIG.5. Okay. But the first letter should always be capital. Okay. Why this is the case? Because when you make the first letter capital, that means now it's a reference to the figure or the table. Okay, so they are, for example, if you write figure and if you write figure in the same paragraph, this means that this is a reference to the actual figure. So after this I am expecting a number. This means I am talking about figure. I am talking about a figure. So I will say, for example, figure 1 shows this data. Okay, so I will use it like this, the first letter capital. And then in the next sentence, I say, from this figure we can see this. Okay, so I am not giving the reference of the figure. So I will use it like this. Got it? Clear or not? Everybody? Okay. And with the caption again, same thing. When you are putting in the caption, the first letter must be capital. Okay, and again, you can use both forms for writing the figure. There is no short form for table. There is no short form for table. So only for figure, sometimes we use figure full, or sometimes we just put FIG. Okay, the text in the tables and the writing must not be smaller than 3 millimeter. Okay, and I checked it. How much is 3 millimeter? So when you go to Word, it does not give you the font size in millimeters. It gives you size in points. So 1 point is approximately 0.35 millimeter. A font size of 1 point in Word or in Excel or in PowerPoint is equal to 0.35 millimeter. Okay, so 3 millimeters means how many points? Almost 9. Okay, so the font size which you are using in the figure and the table should not be less than 9 points. Okay, and yeah, you can, for example, you have some data. For that data, you have made a figure. Okay, you can put a table for the same data and put that table in the appendix. Okay, now what will be the benefit here? Same data in a figure, same data in a table. What's the benefit here?
For the reader to choose what he prefers.
Okay, some readers may prefer a table, some readers may prefer a figure.
Sometimes figures can't explain what tables do, and sometimes tables can't explain what figures do. So
Such as?
For example, sometimes data, it's hard to put data in figures. Sometimes,
But you
some
put it.
data. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it's easier to put data in figures. Sometimes it's not. So you put both sides.
Anybody else? What's the use of having a figure and a table for the same data in the same report? Anything else? It can be personal preference. Okay. And what else?
To show other sides of the.
Yeah, okay. In some cases, yeah, figure is showing the trend. I was interested in finding out the trend, yes. Okay, but I also want to see your data, how many samples you took, how many values you had, for each point, how many samples you took. Okay, so yeah, I am happy with the trend. So 90% of the readers just want to see the trend, fine. But the other 10% are technical people, they are engineers, they are, people in research and so on and so forth. So they want to see your data as well. So the data comes up in the table. Okay, so it's an extra information for people who want to see in more details. Okay, so this can be done. Okay, each column and each row must have a separate title. Okay, and this is, yeah, this one. So each column has a title and each row has a title. Okay, or it can be, if you are showing the same information in all the rows, no need for title, right? Get my point? All the rows are showing the same information for different, what is this now? Different governorates. So then don't need the row title. Okay, or all of them, all these values are total. Then I don't need a column title, right? If they are not for each governorate, I don't need the column title. Okay, so according to the data, the rows and columns should have some titles. Okay. So make sure your tables which you are using in the main report, not in the appendix, they are not more than few lines. Okay. If the table is too long, try to avoid it. Okay. And how can we avoid it? I already told you 2 or 3 points, right? What can you do to shrink the table?
But every data, like the number.
Significant figures.
Significant figures, reduce the significant figures. Okay, what else? Rounding off and so on. What else? Anything else?
According to the information you have, you should decide how much information more should be given.
Avoid unnecessary information. Any information which is not directly linked with the reader, take it out. Okay, what else?
Group information together.
Huh?
Group information.
Group information together instead of having every day or every month. Have it for 3 months or 6 months. Okay, what else?
Not repeat things. Not repeating things.
And how do we do that?
Like this figure you showed us,
Uh-huh.
it's got 2 things as like the same thing. So we do not repeat them.
Okay.
The column, the y-axis and the x-axis.
They are talking about tables. Tables. Figure for sure. One figure cannot be more than 1 page, right? Figure cannot be broken in page 1 and page 2. One figure has to fix in 1 page. They are talking about tables. Tables can do that. Okay. Another thing which I said is you put some of the information in the heading of the column which is repeating. Okay. So everything is in the same units. So instead of using the unit with every number, just put it in the heading. Okay, and so on and so forth. And larger table should be included in the appendices. If there's a table which you cannot shrink, okay, it has to be in the full size, there is nothing I can do about it, put it in the appendix. Okay. Some guidelines for figures. Figures should either cover half a page or an entire page. Less than half a page considered too small. More than entire page not possible. Okay, more than one page not possible. You cannot break up a figure. Okay, half a page is good. Okay, if they are graphs, so figures can be graphs or they can be what else? Pictures, and what else? People from civil engineering. What do we make? You took a course with AutoCAD, right? AutoCAD gives you
figures like circuits and tables like MATLAB results.
Okay, okay. AutoCAD gives you what? You use AutoCAD to do what? Make
They make 3D models of figures.
drawings, right? 3D models also drawings. AutoCAD gives you drawings.
In SolidWorks, they
Okay.
do.
So those are all figures, and one of the types of figures is a graph. Okay. Graph must be used particularly when trends are shown. You want to show the trends. Okay, one thing going up and down because of the other, you use graphs. Okay, and graph can be used for comparing between different trends as well. Okay, so the population of Bahrain is going up and the population of some other country is going down, for comparison. Okay, so for comparison you can use graphs. For showing the trends you can use graphs. Okay, and one thing which if you are presenting comparison between two data sets, then it is more preferable to put them in the same graph. If you are comparing between 2 countries and 3 countries, okay, plot their data in the same graph. Okay, I already showed you one figure where the comparison was done. See this one? It's a comparison, right? 1998 and 2020. So in the same graph. Okay, and comparison between different modes of transport, truck, air and rail, again same graph. Okay, so for comparison try to put together the data from different series or different sources in the same graph. Okay, like in the same figure. Okay, and if you cannot put them in the same figure, try to make sure the graphs are close to each other. The information is different. Okay, so I have to put them in different graphs. So make sure both the graphs are close to each other. Okay, in some cases we make them side by side. Okay, so one graph, another graph, side by side. Okay, for comparison. The preferable is what? Data from this graph should also be here. But if you cannot do it, put them side by side. This is more preferable, or one after the other, top and bottom. Okay, and then in those cases use same scale. For figures where you are comparing different data, use the same scale so the comparison is also realistic. Okay, you are saying this graph is going like this and this graph is going like this, so the slope is changed, right? But this axis has a scale of 1:10 and this axis has a scale of 1:100. There is no comparison. Okay, so when you are comparing in different figures, make sure they are close to each other, preferably side by side, and their scales are similar. Okay, so putting the data in the same graph, you can see 3 lines and each line is for a different data. Same thing here, 3 graphs, each graph for a different data. When you are putting it like this, then you also have to worry about making sure that one data looks different than the other. So one line looks different than the other. Here they are doing it by using solid line and dashed lines. Okay, but you can see here, so there is not much difference between this one and this one, right? This one and this one, very close, very, I cannot see the difference. There's the difference, yeah. If somebody does the right click and goes in the properties, he can see the difference. But for a reader, both these lines look same. Okay, so when you are putting the data in the same graphs, then you have to make sure that they look different. The data looks different. You can use different colors, you can use different shapes, you can do something like this. You can use the thickness of the line as well. So this line is very thin, this line is bold, and this one is much wider, okay, and so on and so forth. So there are different methods, but make sure the data looks different. Don't tell the reader do right click and go to properties and I told you in the text and so on. Okay, when he looks at the graph, everything should be clear. He doesn't have to read anything. Okay, so again some comparisons now you can see here using different colors. Okay, and this is basically the same data, so it's very easy to plot it like this. Sorry?
Yeah, there is something wrong with the left.
Okay, tell me.
Frequency is I think wrong. It's I, it should be E.
Where?
Frequency, there, the title of the graph.
Where
The
is
spelling
E?
of frequency.
The spelling of frequency, it's with the I.
Okay.
It should be
So now you know from where I got it. From a student report. Okay. When I took this course for the first time last year, the first advice I got was don't cut their marks for spellings. Everybody will end up 0. Okay, I don't do this. But obviously it's very shameful that something which the software itself is telling you and you don't take care of it. When you type something in Word or even in WhatsApp, it is showing the correct spelling. So what's the problem? Too lazy to do one more click? What is this? Your entire reputation is at stake, and you are not, taking 1 or half a second extra to correct your mistakes. It's rude. Okay. The quantity of information which you put in one graph or one figure should be limited. Okay, and the symbols should be clearly distinguished. Symbols are the different colors and different lines and so on. These are what? Symbols. Okay, so try to minimize the information and use symbols which are easily and clearly distinguishable. No need to ask you. Okay, yeah. So I told you about independent and dependent variables, right? Independent was input. Okay, so normally independent is kept on the horizontal axis and dependent is kept on the vertical axis. Okay, another what you call notation is, or another rule is that dependent comes on the left hand side, independent come on the right hand side of the equation. If you are writing an equation, dependent on the left hand side, independent on the right hand side. If you are putting it in a graph, dependent on the y-axis, independent on the x-axis. Okay, and that's why if I have to put it in an equation, and if I have to use a notation for independent and dependent, for dependent I use y, and for independent we use x. Who knows the equation of a straight line?
Y equals X.
Y,
Straight line.
straight line, y equals x.
Y
equals 10.
Y equals mx plus c.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so y equals mx plus c. How will I write it? Y mx plus c. So which one is dependent? The one on the left hand side. Which one is independent? The one which is on the right hand side. Okay, and when I plot it, this one will go on the y-axis, this one will go on the x-axis. Okay, so everything is connected. That's why we call them x-axis and y-axis. Okay. Yeah. So the axis of the graph must have a name, a label. Okay. What is this axis showing? And with the label you show the units as well. Okay. Dollar or kilogram or pound, whatever. So every axis must have a title, and the title should also have a unit of the numbers you are showing on that axis. Okay. Yeah. Using invisible tables and rows and columns. Okay. So this is our table. Does it look like a table? It doesn't. Why? Because I have hidden the borders of the rows and columns, the lines which we have in the row and column. I have hidden it. Okay. There is an option in the Word or even in Excel to do this, and we will see these options next week, inshallah. So why do we do it? Why do we have invisible rows and columns? Sometimes you are making forms. You see different forms, questionnaires. Okay. So it helps you in that. Okay, so the information is arranged in question and answer. Okay, but you are worried that if I just type it as text and then I keep on editing it, then the question may go somewhere else, the answer may go somewhere else. So you put it in a table, but you don't want the reader to show it's a table. You still want to show him it's a form, it's text. So you can hide the rows and columns. Okay. Another thing which you can do is, we do it as well, the figures. The caption of the figure should be where? Below the figure, right? Okay. And you want it to be with the figure, right? Wherever I move the figure, the caption should move with it, right? The easiest way to do it is make a table. The first row, the figure. Second row, the caption. Wherever I move it, I move the table.
There is an option more that you could move a paragraph with a figure.
Yes, there is. We will discuss that. But I am talking about the figure and the caption. Unfortunately, they are giving us an option to move the caption and the text in the paragraph, but they are not giving us an option to move the figure and the caption of the figure. There is something like amazing. Okay, so we will see it. Okay, so it may happen you copy the figure, you put it somewhere else, but you forgot to copy the caption, so it will remain as it is, and Word will not show you any error. Okay, if you remove the caption at all, then Word shows an error in the text that you mentioned figure 1, there is no figure 1, but figure 1 is somewhere else, the caption is somewhere else, no error, still works. Okay, so you want to keep things, 2 or 3 things together, a figure and its caption or something like this. Okay, and you want to make sure wherever you move it, both of them move together. Okay, so in that case you can use a table with invisible rows and columns. So to the reader it will look like a figure and the caption, but to you, you know it's a table, so I can move it together. And I already gave you one more example. When you are comparing between 2 graphs, so I want the 2 graphs to be side by side, right? Okay, and I want them to move together, right? Again, use a table with invisible rows and columns. Okay, so the reader will see what? 2 graphs, but for you it's one table, so it will move together. Got it? Okay, another application, you have a table. Under the table, sometimes we have footnotes. What are footnotes?
The ones that are not included in the presentation but are included for the presenter.
No, that is something else. Footnotes for the table. Footnotes for the table. Okay, so for example, I put a asterisk here and then I write something with the asterisk at the end of the table. This is what we call the footnote in general. What you are saying is for the presentation, yes. Okay, but they don't get, they just call them notes, they don't call them footnotes. Anyway, so what does this do? What will I write here? Huh? Anyone?
Explanation.
Explanation. Okay. So item 1 or this word needs some explanation. So this will come at the end of the table. Again, why? If I try to do the explanation here, too much information. Okay. So again, I am trying to reduce an information in the table by putting a footnote. And footnote can be in the figures as well. Again, static or upper letter A and B and so on. Okay. And under the figure, the explanation appears. Okay. So information, again reducing the information from the table or the figure. Okay. But this footnote should appear again with the table, right? This footnote should appear with the table. So if I move the table, footnote should move with it. So I put an extra line here, and then for that extra line I remove the rows and columns for that one line only. Okay, like this. Okay, so for example, I put this like this here. So I want to give some extra explanation for duration, so I put a footnote here. Okay, so I put in a table. First row, the figure, second row, the footnote. Okay, and it's a table, so it will move together. Third row, the caption. Okay, so it will move together. Okay, it will not disturb. If you have a table, okay, so this is a table. Okay, you can actually see, yeah, the aesthetic is already there. See? Now what happened? When I copy the table, did I copy the footnotes? I didn't, huh? I made a mistake. Okay, I should have. This will not happen if the footnote was part of the table. You see, there is a static. But static means what? I don't know. Why this has happened? Because the footnote was not part of the table. Somebody just typed it. So when I copied the table, footnote was not copied. Okay. So what you can do? Put an extra line in the table, add an extra row, put the footnote here, and make this invisible. The border, make it invisible. Okay. So for the reader, it will just look like a text. But whenever he copies it, it will go with the table. No information missing. Got it? Okay. So these are some ways in which you can use the tables or the invisible rows and columns. Okay. For figures and okay, already showed all the points.